Before we start today's show, let's begin with the poll question. Should the Golden State Warriors trade for a big? It's been a big topic of conversation among Dub Nation, so let us know and let your feelings be known down in the comment section by giving me a T for trade or a P for pass. And with that, let's talk about some bigs on today's show. Coming your way on Golden State Warriors today, 5 trade ideas for the Warriors to bring in a big. I'm Chase Sr. Appreciate all of you for being here with us. So a couple of bigs who we want to talk about on today's show. And we start off with Chris Boucher of the Toronto Raptors. Under Nick Nurse, had been able to develop pretty well over the last couple of years. Really tall, really lengthy, has a corner three to his game. As you can see, he's a little bit thin, so he can get muscled up by some large bigs on the low block, but I like his athleticism. I like that length because it helps him make up for the lack of bulk with just being able to block shots and really redirect shots and bother you around the rim because he can stand really tall. And the trade idea that we want to look at here is the Warriors getting Chris Boucher for Gary Payton II, Corey Joseph, and Trayce Jackson-Davis. Now, by all accounts, the Golden State Warriors really like the rookie in Trayce Jackson-Davis, and I've talked about him plenty here on the show. I think that even though he's a little bit older, coming out of the college ranks, I'm fine with that because the Warriors need a big who's going to be able to contribute right away, play a lot as a rookie, and I think that TJD does have an opportunity to do that because he's a smart, seasoned, heady player who kind of fits in that Kevon Looney mold of just having that high basketball IQ, being in the right place at the right time. You lose some good defensive pieces here in Gary Payton II and Corey Joseph. I do not think that this is pressing to the point where you need to give up 3 pieces here on this Warriors roster for Chris Boucher. You look at what he's done, though, over the last 4 years. 2022, 2023, 2021, 2022, kind of hovering around 9 points per game or so, a little less than a block per night. He was getting a little bit more time back in 2020, 2021, and because of that 13.5 points per game, almost 7 boards, almost 2 blocks as well, while connecting on about 51% of his field goals. So you think about the idea of Boucher with the Warriors. I like the idea because you have a need there, and I think that he could be a solid rotational player. I don't make the trade because I think you have to give up too much in order to bring in a player who might not see more than 20, 25 minutes per night. Big trade target number 2, Isaiah Hartenstein of the New York Knicks. I know my boy Marshall Green, host of New York Knicks Now, really likes the player, and he signed a large contract 2 off seasons ago with New York, and I thought at moments he was able to give that team a lot, spelling Mitchell Robinson either when he needed a breather or when Mitch Rob was hurt because he's been a little bit injury prone throughout his career. And this is a similar trade idea to the first one that we looked at. With Hartenstein going to the Warriors, Knicks getting Gary Payton II, Trayce Jackson-Davis. Those are the 2 players who were also included in that first trade for Chris Boucher, 2 second-round picks. I think that Hartenstein, even though the numbers are a little bit less than Chris Boucher, is actually a better player. Now, with him, he's a different type of big because Hartenstein doesn't really shoot the 3, but he's active around the rim. He's a pretty good athlete, and he does have that bulk to remain in front of some larger centers across the NBA. Also a lefty, too. Whereas Chris Boucher, a little bit of a righty. So Boucher has that corner 3. Hartenstein doesn't have that. But I like how Hartenstein can kind of put the ball on the floor a little bit. He can operate the dribble handoff, and he's pretty tough on both ends of the floor. Coming up next here on the show, 3 more trade targets for the Warriors to bring in a big. But first, the only app that you should be targeting if you want to play daily fantasy, it is Prize Picks. And we can give you up to a $100 deposit match at prizepicks.com/CLNS. But make sure you use the code CLNS for that deal to apply. This is the largest independently run daily fantasy sports app in North America, and it's the only one that I use because it's simply the best. Now, a lot of the real ones out there know that I'm the host of the 49ers Report as well. San Francisco. So I'm very well versed when it comes to the Niners. And when you play their more or less game, you get to go more or less on a player's projected stat line, and you can pick 2 players from the same team, then you have to go elsewhere. It makes game day really, really fun. So for the Niners game against the Cleveland Browns, as the Niners look to remain undefeated, getting that record to 6-0 with the victory, I like Deebo Samuel to go off. He's been absent the last couple of weeks outside of a splash play versus the Dallas Cowboys. Let's go more than 47.5 receiving yards. George Kittle, off the heels of his hat trick against the Cowboys, more than 40.5 receiving yards. I think that Browns defense could be susceptible to Kittle going down the seam. And then Amari Cooper. We're not sure if Deshaun Watson's going to play. Less than 59.5 receiving yards for Cleveland against this Niners defense. So great payouts and up to a $100 deposit match at prizepicks.com/CLNS. I don't know what took me so long this football season. I've been able to win up to 25 times my money. We'll put that link in the comment section and in the description of this video. Big trade target number 3. This is a player who I actually really, really like, and you can classify him as more of a prototypical 4, but Dorian Finney-Smith, formerly of the Dallas Mavericks, now with the Brooklyn Nets, is one of the premier defenders at that wing spot who can also guard some players down low too. And this Warriors trade is pretty interesting because of the offensive firepower that you get that can help make up for losing Jordan Poole to the Washington Wizards in that Chris Paul trade. Dubs get Dorian Finney-Smith, Spencer Dinwiddie. Those are 2 championship-level pieces. But if you're to pull a trade off like this, you're going to have to give up a lot. And that's why the Warriors include Chris Paul, Moses Moody in that deal, and 2 second-round picks. Because from the Nets' point of view, they're giving up a really good defender at the 4 spot. So they get a solid defender back with defensive upside and a cost-controlled asset in Moses Moody, but a guy who can also shoot the 3 just like Dodo can. That's Dorian Finney-Smith's nickname, by the way. And then they lose a playmaker in Spencer Dinwiddie. They get a playmaker back in Chris Paul, and then you throw those 2 second-round picks in there as well. Dinwiddie, he can find Twan, put the biscuit in the basket, 17 points per game last year, with a lot of volume, shy of 44% from the floor, but 37% from 3. Very solid player, and I really like Dorian Finney-Smith. He was awesome for the Mavericks 2 years ago when they made it to the Western Conference Finals. So of the trades that we've talked about so far, that's one of the ones that I like the most. Now, I want you to be the general manager here. Would you trade Paul and Moody for Finney-Smith as well as Dinwiddie? Y for yes, N for no. Once again, I want you to treat that YouTube comment section like a Sports Talk Radio call-in line or the cesspool that is Twitter. Daniel Gafford of the Washington Wizards. Let's spend a few moments talking about him next here on the show. Of the players here who we've talked about up to this point, he's probably my least favorite. I have to be honest here. And this trade is awful. I mean, this is an awful trade. Whoever on the internet decided to put this on paper, you're a fraud, and it's kind of a joke. Daniel Gafford is not worth Jonathan Kuminga and Gary Payton II. What the heck are we doing here, especially when you look at Gafford's numbers? Gafford's been an average player at best, and you're giving up 2 really solid pieces. No, 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 no. Never doing it. Never giving up those assets for a player who's a scrub in Daniel Gafford. I can't even waste my breath any longer on that. No, don't do it. Turn the lights off. We got to end the show if we have to keep talking about Daniel Gafford. Now, make sure you subscribe to Warriors Today. The real ones know that reference, by the way. Producer Jeremy out there. We got past 60,000 subscribers. We need 722 more to get the 61K. Let's rock. Nas Reed. I like this player of the Minnesota Timberwolves, and I think he's actually been pretty important to what the T-Wolves have looked to do over the last couple of years. As really, they're trying to build that roster up around Anthony Edwards. I think Karl Anthony Towns is a little bit flaky, but they do have some good players, and they were competitive against the Denver Nuggets in the first round after they lost the first couple of games of that series. Dubs here, they get Reed. Timberwolves get Gary Payton II, Dario Saric, Brandon Podziemski, and a second-round pick. I want to see what Saric can do on this team. I think he's that classic European who's going to be awesome on this squad. Nas Reed is a pretty awesome player, though, especially as a bench piece, rotational guy who really bulks up your depth 11.5 points per game, just shy of 5 rebounds and assists per 53.7%. This is a player who's kind of a glue guy who can do it all. I like his size, I like his length, and I like his overall play as far as the fit goes for Golden State. So there you go. Bunch of trade targets on today's show, 5 of them to be exact. Pick a trade target. Chris Boucher, type 1, Hartenstein, 2, Dodo, 3, Gafford, 4, hell no, if you type 4, and Naz Reed at 5. Don't forget to subscribe to us here on Golden State Warriors Today. Appreciate Harrison, Allie Barefoot stepping in during the NFL season to help keep the content going here on the show, and appreciate all of your support for watching the program.